Well, thank you very much for inviting me to be here and for inviting me to, well, to share with you something that I like very much. Is what, I love architecture. I'm passionate of my work. And this opportunity of sharing with you that we have all that in common is just a good reason of being also to meet friends that for a long time we have not met, as Enrique. Is also, it's difficult to say no to come here. Well, and I thought, okay, what I'm going to tell you. And maybe I'm going to, with this hour of this Swiss architectural hour, I was thinking, okay, what I am doing? What is my work now? What are my concerns? What I want to be when growing up, And what's that, And I think that is a moment to ask all these things, and I'm going to share with you all this reason of my work. And the first idea I'm going to tell you, I think that I structured just in 3 ideas. This environmental commitment, realistic approach, and intellectual freedom. I think that just with these ideas, I can express what I am doing and what I am interested in doing. First of all, is the idea of the planet needs us. It's not something that maybe 10 years ago I was not so aware of what was happening. But nowadays, I think that we have to move very quickly if we don't want to if we want to change things that are going to happen. And the planet needs us. And maybe we have to change the system because we are producing too much waste. We must be careful with the resource we are working, and maybe we have to change what we do. And the first, my last project, I'm not going to go deep into my last project, but is with an engineer that is my client, but he works in a big industry, in a big factory of porcelain, of sinks and all these things. And with his laboratory of waste. And what they do is to recycling all this material and using the industrial waste for new material. In this case, he's Jim, my client, and my friend, and also the person working with. And what they are doing is trying to use as resource what is industrial waste, that we have mountains of waste in this. He's working he has his laboratory in Wisconsin, in the United States, and he has done himself this ceramic for his house. And this ceramic is made of this new way of understanding, the resource. And I think that is something that we have to learn. What can we do to use less? And I think that, I learned that not only the use to avoid the waste material, not only that. Long time ago, more than 20 years ago, I have to say that my first work was the restoration of this building in Mexico. When I finished my studies, I went to Mexico, and I was so, lucky of working in this world of Felix Candela. I don't know, maybe some of you know him, Felix Candela. Well, I learned quite a lot. I have to say that I was 24 years old. And then I got this commitment of the rehabilitation of this building. And I discovered that just with 5 centimeters of concrete, it was possible to cover with 8 points a very, very big surface. to do a building with very small resource. And it was because he was working with the form, with the shape, as structural, but in a very, very clever way. It was for economic reason, of course, but not without aesthetic also, and not without sensibility, with a very high sensibility. Then I discovered that maybe we can find in this way of working the solution for our commitment worries, no? Or commitment concern. Don't use more than necessary, neither more nor less. If you don't use more than necessary, maybe some other people is not going to have less than necessary. And not only in this moment, but maybe in the future. And I thought that it could be a good thing. I learned 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, this idea. And I think that in this moment, with this environmental problem, we have to learn of that. Never using more than necessary, because if not, other people will have less than necessary, now or tomorrow. And I think that with that idea, I think that having good ideas, it was very interesting, it's very, very good, but it's not enough to change the world. And then, okay, I think I propose a new ethic that moves us to the action. And to me, as an architect, to change the way of building, to change the systems, the production system of architecture, because if you think that Le Corbusier, with the new technique, was able of changing the way of building, if we now have another circumstance, why we don't change this way of over-exploiting the planet? Why don't change the way of building, for building a better future? Okay, and then, as you can see, it's not a small job. What I thought that it was important to change. And this is the beginning of my research as architect, and my research also as as professor, as you know. And I'm going to show you three buildings that they have in common, that we are working with new system of building, system that maybe you have never heard about because they are new, absolutely new. The patent is by a professor of the School of Architecture of Granada, and they are very sustainable in the three ways: social, economics, and environmental. But we want, well, they are not perfect. It's the first thing I have to say. This system is called el estopa, a structural element of double wall, and new, and we have all kind of problems you can have when it's the first time you use a new system. But the good thing is that, well, we have learned a lot, and now we are in a different step. I will show you the first one. The first one is for a school. Well, I have developed all these systems in the worst moment of the Spanish crisis. Absolutely no money. And this is a school. This is a school between the highway and the railway. You can think in a worse place for a school. It was done 50 years ago. This is the original space. As you can see, not. Because if they say, okay, we need one more classroom. Okay, we put here the classroom, and we need, and in the middle of nothing, in front of the highway, without facade and all these things. And then it was for very poor people in this old area, and they say, okay, we need, because if not, if we don't have a multipurpose space and a new stair, in case of fire stair, they will close the school, and we need, we need to get this space. Okay, I will do it for you. And the price is 130,000 euros. We don't have money. It's not possible to do that. Okay? Let us think again. And, well, at the end, with this new system, I did this work of nearly 200 square meters with 83,000 euros. 83. This is not the price of the, this is not the honoraries of the architect. It's the total price of this building I'm going to show you. And this is done with this system. This system is an invention of a friend of mine. But I thought, something is very visionary, think something, but he needs somebody who believe and trust him. And it's what I did. I trust him. You can see here that this is insulation. All is insulation, and this is concrete, and it's shotcrete. They project the concrete, and they have some connections between one wall and another, and then it's very good because it works like very well because, as you know, in a concrete wall, is what is working is the outside because it's where you have the iron. The inside is the neutral fiber, and it's not working. The only thing you have to do is to connect the outside, where is the iron. Then, and another question is that we are working in a very high seismic area, Granada. All kind of facilities for doing cheap work. Then, with this idea, what we can get is a very strong concrete wall, not only work because it's the roof, everything. Excuse me. Now I will show you how we can do it. All this is like a ring working, as it is were a solid wall, but with something better than a solid wall is that it's not so heavy, because force is mass for acceleration, force, and we have seismic acceleration, and then we reduce the problem of the earthquake without reducing the weight. Some of you are lost. I'm sorry. But some others can follow the problem. It's very simple. It's physics. Yes or not? Yes. Okay, in this case, we thought that but the very best thing was that it was possible to build, okay, maybe the constructor lost some money, maybe, because maybe he didn't thought it was going to be, not so easy. But you can see here, this is insulation, and also here is insulation, and then what you do is to project the concrete. And here, to get the windows, we left just the outside wall, and to get the light in, we could hear these pipes, and to put there in a very quiet, how do you say, artisanal, craftsman, this kind of craftsman way of working. Okay, and this is the final work, maybe very ugly, maybe, but tell me if you are able of doing it cheaper, maybe more beautiful, I agree, but cheaper, maybe not. And also it was very necessary to get the light, but protecting from the balls of the, of the camp. It was also very, very, everything it has, to solve a lot of problems at the same time. And here you have, at night, here is the inside. it was necessary to have a high roof because it was going to be a multi-purpose place. And here you can see that the control of the light, it was like an solar clock. And here you can see also that it was a place that also it was very cheap because if I have the insulation inside, and not only in the insulation, but also all the lights and all the things I put in the insulation, then when I finished with the structure, the work was over. And then it was really interesting. Now they got more money and they decided to paint in white and to put, if they get money, they have very low cultural level. And for them, this was not, it was, they prefer to have more things, and then they paint the outside. They get some money, they do some improvements, but never mind, they had a big problem. We solved the problem, and now they are, doing it as they like. I don't mind. That was, but it was a very interesting question because it was my first experience with these new systems that it has to be, well, if it was not so economic, it was not possible to do that. It was a very strong condition. And I think that sometimes the architects have to learn how to do without a lot of resource. This is thinking in this way of Felix Candela. We don't have more, tell me, is possible or not? Okay, we have to think how to do it without anything, striping all the things that are not necessary. Okay, not floor, not finish, not ceiling. Okay, and then they will put when they have money. The second idea I would like to tell you about my work, it will go with, I will explain each idea with one word. The second idea is this realistic approach. Realistic approach means that I work in Granada, south of Europe. No, south of Europe. And in a place that is not very, when I finished my studies, I was in London studying high tech, and I went to United States and a lot of things. I'm very fond of all those things. But reality tells me that it's not possible in Granada because my clients don't have money for that. The normal people in Granada, not in other places, it's not affordable for them. And then I thought, okay, we are in the middle of the crisis. You have to choose. Well, I have some client that has not this problem, but it's exceptional to have some problem without this problem. But I thought, okay, if we want to solve all this, the future of the planet, it's very important to go to understand the low technology systems, to go with something that are easy, simple, and you can see here wonderful way of getting, this energetic solution for getting the fridge. And then I thought that I was going to work developing, and also with this idea of this friend of mine, with LSDOPA. I knew that LSDOPA was not perfect, not at all perfect. I think it's a very good system, but we had a lot of problems because when it's the first time you use something, not you, when you are discovering something new, you have to deal with a lot of problems. And every day you have to solve what happens with the problems because it's not something conventional, it's not something that is proof. You are going the first in this way of exploring new ways. And then I thought, okay, we are working with low systems, low energy, and now we are building with prefabricated concrete without iron, because we want to save, to reduce the carbon print. And then we are working with the form, working with the shape, and trying to do different things, because with low technology. And why working with concrete? Concrete is not perfect, of course not. I know it's not perfect, but I have this idea of getting low cost, low energy buildings. And we are working with new systems. Here we are working, these are new systems for prefabricate that they are going to have insulation inside, and we are building, with this new system, we are building these low house, low energy buildings, and they are very experimental. And I will tell you, because we are now going to build the first passive house with concrete, prefabricated concrete system, passive house. But at the same time, this is not enough. We want to reduce the iron and all these things. Okay, I think this is what we are working. Trying to do things. Why concrete? Because I have to tell you that concrete is the second most used material in the world. And it's affordable for everybody now, and in the countries developed, in Africa, in Asia, in the south of Europe, all around. But we have to improve this concrete, and we have to improve these systems that still are not in the market. Also because there is something that maybe you have not thought about that, but when you say environmental responsibility, something like that, you say, wow, high price. No? It's not possible to think that low cost, low energy, low, high ecology and price is like enemies. Don't you think, you never realize of that? At least where I live is quite clear. If you say that something has to be responsible with environmentally responsible, then say, okay, it's very expensive. You cannot do it like that. Okay, we have to change that. We have to get something that it could be very environmentally responsible, but at the same time, because if not, we are not going to do what we want to do. If not, if you are not in the market, it's not possible to change for the middle class and for all these countries. You are not going to change because they are the people who need the housing. I'm sorry because I think my English is not very good today. I don't know why, but in this moment I am feeling I am not expressing myself very well. But if you just to say like this, I will ask for help, and I will be sure that you will understand. Well, this is the first idea: low technology to change the world. We are not going to change the world with high technology that is just affordable for 5% of the people. Now, we need to work for 95% of the people of the planet that are the other one, who are not able to afford that big one. And then the second question, the next question that has to do with this reality, this realistic approach, is that we have to work with the lightest and the heaviest. Lightest with the light, with heaviest, I mean with concrete. But don't think that working with concrete has to be something that plain, boring, conventional, non-artistic. No, I need to do very cheap buildings. And then they are horrible. Well, maybe you think that the first word I told you, it was horrible, but, And then, this is the second word I want to show you. This is a small chart, also with very, very low budget. But you are supposed, well, in fact, I have to say that my client wants something like a Romanic chart, and I say, okay, let us think about that. And at the end, they are happy. But in the beginning, it was, we have to work quite a lot. And I think, okay, it's so difficult to build a chart in a place as Granada, where we have wonderful, you know, it's very high, no, the level, because we have wonderful churches. And then say, okay, I'm going to do something that, well, I don't want to do something new. I want to do just something very simple, understanding the place, and also using this new material and this new system that I knew that it was going to help me very much. But in this case, it was just, the Estopa was just in the top, because I want a very large span without pillars, and it was very good to have this slab very big, but it was cheaper to have the walls like this just with concrete. Also because in the interior, my client was not able to accept just concrete, because says, okay, that is too much. It was difficult, it was hard to have concrete in the outside, but I told them that it was like a stone in the middle of the garden and all these things. I have to explain a lot of things of this idea of the beautiful place, isn't it? It's difficult to understand better place in front of the sea. Well, again, what can you do to don't spend too much? To avoid, you know, what I have done is windows, nothing, just holes, and you have the windows inside. And everything was neither less nor more. If you don't need neither less nor more. And then also we had other problems. The problem is that I was supposed to have the same rules as the housing in front of me. My top height was 7 meters. You know, it was tiny. I was asking to be the same of the single housing next to me. And then I have to work with the scale and to say, okay, then I have to do something really very abstract, because I don't want people to think that this is just one house, one more house. It has to be something different. I have to avoid this scale. And then I work avoiding the scale. This is very low. And also avoiding any things that can show you the real size of the place where we are. Also, these are prefabricated not with iron. They are with alternative fiber. Is my first work working with alternative fibers, and it's very important because now I'm working in the port of Motril, and we are with this research on new materials. Very important because the corrosion of iron is the first problem we have in all the concrete buildings. And then to avoid the problem, you have to avoid the iron, and then you get long life for your concrete. Okay. All these things, and this is the first time I have done it. You can see that you can open, you have this space inside. It was very, very simple, just 3 openings for light and nothing else. The only important thing is that you have to choose very well where to put the holes, because the important, and then the sun will do the work itself, you know. But you just have to choose where to do these small holes that are for free, because it was just avoiding a little bit of, reducing a little bit. Also, we were working very well with acoustic, because in a place like this, acoustic are really, really important. Not only light and sound. And this is why, I don't know if you can see, the ceiling is not parallel to the floor. because if ceiling and floor is parallel and you are working with a concrete box, you will need lot of different things to solve the problem you create. And then, in this case, what I do is working with the shape and to do things to solve the problem without the need of, after that, putting new materials for absorb the sound. But also here we need this, and we put this pladur with these holes to avoid that. I'm sorry, and this is the crypta. The under the chart is this. Also because there was a difference of level between one side and the other side, and it was quite natural to get that. Here you have this idea of being in the middle of the place. A very, very important thing is that we didn't remove any tree. We were in the middle of the garden, and we have to put also with the east orientation, with all the things that of a usual of the temple of the beginning of the temples, of the beginning of the Christianism, is faced to the east, and in the west you have these small windows, but also in the other facade that is north, we are all the vegetation is going through the wall of concrete wall. It was very important. Well, and the third thing that this realistic approach is that, okay, you can do, being realistic is to understand that we architects, we have a lot of constraints, and that in some way we have to learn to dance in chains. You know what I mean? You say, okay, but now your plot is this, and your program is this, and your client is this, and your budget is this. And in some case, well, this is hospitals, because I used to work in pediatric hospitals, and this is for a hospital. This is especially difficult when at the same time you are working in a hospital and doctor says, and this, and this, and this, and we need more and more, and this air condition need that, and this is a unit, intensive care unit in the biggest pediatric hospital in Madrid, Hospital Niño Jesús. And is also not only that, but also it is it's in an old building that is heritage, and it's more difficult because what you propose has to go to the cultural heritage of the council, and they say that you can move this, you can move the wall, you can do nothing at all. But anyway, it was quite difficult, but we have to get the light inside and to do architecture in spite of the chains you have. To have chains is never an excuse to say, okay, I could do nothing else. Okay, no, we have to learn to work with all these things. And it's more difficult, yes, it will be. I'm not sure if it's more difficult to have clear rules, but we have to deal with that. And this is realistic. To think that we are going to draw for free, and sometimes most of the decisions are not our decision, but we are the director of all the, and we have to, here in the beginning I thought, okay, the floor could be very high, but when the engineers came here, said, no, this is an United Care unit, and then you have to do this renovation of the air, and if you have a very big space, you need bigger machines. Okay, no, I will do something to get the light, but without, you have to work with the problems we have, but to be sure what you want to get, and to don't renounce to distance, but to do your work and people to be happy. I'm very glad because the doctor, the director of this unit, brought me 1 year after when we finished, and she said that they were working very well and they were very happy. And that's a very good thing because doctors are not easy to be happy with what we do. And the third thing is in my work is intellectual freedom. Okay, of course, we are in Europe. We don't have, you can write and say all we like, but this is not the kind of freedom I mean. The kind of freedom I mean has to do more with the freedom of the children, that they can ask and they don't think that things are in this way because things are in this way because we know that this is what we know this. This is the freedom of saying, okay, if I don't like this, why is not possible another way of doing things? If we don't like this over-exploiting the planet, why is not possible to do things in other way? And this is the kind of freedom that is more difficult because sometimes we follow, not all people, but grown people, used to follow the path. But the freedom is, okay, we can follow the path or not. We can think that this is a hack or not. We can have this freedom for looking for new solutions for the things we need. And this is the kind of freedom that I think that I want for myself. In some way, well, I've been working for children for a long time. In fact, my research para mi cátedra, for being professor has to do with research architecture for children. And I think that it was a good opportunity of learning of children. Also, this intellectual freedom has to do with this team game. This team game means that this freedom gives us the opportunity of working with other people, working with inspiring people that is not, sometimes is not in our office. You know, these inspiring people can be fast, but it's a kind of network that help you to be in the same. You know, this freedom helps to work with, to learn of other people, and not only important architects, of course. Also, I learn a lot with some craftsmen who work with me, or I work with them with different, you know, this is the freedom of not being in a business that we have. We are linked with some other things, with some ideas of architecture, of opening, of, you know, of changing things. And I think it's one of the most important things in my work is to have all these inspiring people next to me. Next doesn't mean in Granada. Next in the whole world. And the last thing is that I think that our job as architect is a risky laser. Very risky laser. This is my office. This is my office. I have to tell you that it's absolutely a laboratory of all the things that you cannot do with a client, all things you can risk. And if I have to tell you that if maybe I will, you know, maybe I can show all the good works I have done, beautiful pictures. I can show you beautiful pictures because I've been working for a long time. But maybe it could be more interesting if someday I can do a lecture of all my failures. Failures? A lot of them. I remember one of the first inventions I had to solve something. And then one day was raining, and they called me that it was all full of water. And for a long time, when it was raining, I used to wake up worried because maybe I have some problem. No? And a lot of things that, okay, maybe if you don't follow the conventional way, you have to risk. If you don't risk, you are never going to win. You follow the others. Okay, you will be very safe. But in fact, and maybe you can be very comfortable, but I think that the planet needs people able of risking. Not risking your life, but risking a little bit, trying to do, okay, what? And well, I will show you some experimental housing that I told you that my laboratory was my own office, was very experimental in all kinds of things, and I have to repeat things more than once because in some way I have new materials and so on, And this experimental housing this is Granada, this is the Alhambra, this is the housing, this is the School of Architecture, and my office is here in this point. As you can see, very near. In 5 minutes, you can go from one point to other. And this were, also in the top of the crisis, it was an experimental housing for my friends and myself. They trust me, and I was going to do something experimental. All again with this system of LS-DOPA that it was so cheap that it was possible to get a house that if not, it was not possible, This is the, okay, risking has problems. Neighbors say that it's very ugly. We had problems with neighbors, but, this freedom also says that not be worried about other people thinking and not trying to be successful because it's impossible to be successful with everybody. And then we use this system, as you can see, and this is the building there. And now we invent all these things because we want the water to go into, and we have not money for doing more sophisticated things. Wonderful is that with my system, it's not necessary to have pillars. It's very good because I park here, and it's great because I am not the very best with my car is not the very best with pillars. And always the same thing is what very cheap because we have not finished. We don't have to paint. It is just the leaf, and here is the concrete. This is the structural concrete, no more. Here again, we use it in the floors and in the walls. Here is before finishing my house. Well, when you think that something is very important, you have to fight for it. It was very difficult to get this glass here. Very difficult because the street was very narrow. And then the builder say, oh, no, it's not possible. But I found somebody who was able to do it with one place to other place. If you think that something is very important, you have to fight for it. Because if not, in the conventional way, it's not possible to do. A lot of things that they say that are not possible, maybe it's possible. But you have to choose if you want to pay the price. And I'm not talking about the economic price for getting it. And well, this is, the shower is here, and you open and it's a glass box inside when you have the bathroom. And well, as this is my apartment, and then you can do something that maybe are not very conventional. And if you want something that maybe is a little bit crazy, because I want this light, because I want this west light, and well, difficult to explain, difficult to explain. Well, I would like to finish with this sentence of Margarita Yourcenar, that says that in this short course of our life, it's mandatory to choose between the tireless hope and the careful lack of tea. And it's up to you, up to me, to change the future. And it's the only, well, it's the only thing I want to share with you. Thank you very much. ¿Hacen preguntas o algo? No, ¿no?
Do you want some questions?
Yes. If somebody wants to ask some question, it will be a pleasure.
Just one question. Which is the thickness of this
El estopa.
estopa from this system?
Fitness, what means?
Thickness.
Thickness. Depends on the insulation you need. In the south of Spain, maybe with 20, 15 is enough. Maybe here you need 30, depending on what is the level of insulation you need. And also the strength of the structure you need.
Yeah, because the concrete on the
5 centimeters,
5
not more.
is
Yes.
enough.
Yes.
How is it then with the temperature inside? Is it really hot?
Here, all these houses are bioclimatic houses. We don't have heating and we don't have cooling. Okay, I have to say that it's not perfect. The worst day of the winter, you have to get good, sweaters. And in summer, you must to get a fan. Okay, it's not perfect. Sometimes comfort is not perfect, but it's bioclimatic, and we have very, very little energy spent.
What's the insulation material inside?
For span, I don't know who is in. For span, I don't know who. Polystyrene. Polystyrene. But now that with this research, we are improving. No, that was absolutely cheap, and now we are working, and the good thing is that I am working now with people from Danosa, that is a very important insulation company, and working with some people of prefabricate, and we are improving.
But this is not prefabricated.
No, not at all. This is shotcrete.
But you said it's projected.
Yes,
But I see a
shotcrete.
very flat finish.
Yes,
That
because
is-
they project, and after that they do like that. If not, it will be like las Cuevas de Altamira, vamos.
And the ceiling is also projected?
Wonderful. No, ceiling no, because in the ceiling it's not necessary to project. You just pour, pour.
But from below?
No. Pour is, you have, ¿cómo se dice? Tú tienes un encofrado.
Yeah, a form.
You have, it's normal. It's just for the walls. We try to do things as easy as possible.
So, but in the roof, you have the slab, and the slab has also the isolation in between?
Well, here in this case, in this roof, not in the ceiling, but in the roof, we have the slab and the insulation on top. The roof is not el estopa because it was not necessary to have so much strength. It's just one slab and 10 centimeters of insulation on the top.
And I was thinking in el Colegio Maestro de Villas, when I was in your architecture, because it was like a really nice collection of architecture happening in Granada. What could be the relation or influence of this?
Well, I have to say that for 20 years, Antonio has been my very close friend, and we work together. In this moment, the last work of him I have finished, what we have done together, and you can see in Convento de Santo Domingo in Huescar. We used to teach together, and we were very, very close friend, and it was a very, very hard loss when 3 years ago he passed away. And I think that I have learned so much of him. He has been very, very important in all my work and what I do and the way of projecting also. It has been very good influence and very important influence as a person and as an architect. Also we have, from very far away, we have worked together. We have some projects in common. Viviendas de Alameda, you can see in my website if you like. But yes, I'm very proud that you see that there is something in common because I think he was very, very brilliant architect. Somebody else?
Any other question? So, thank you very much.
Thank you to you. Thank you.